It's called War of the Ice Ages, and that's just the first volume.
War of the Ice Ages.
Yes, it's everything that did exist in the Ice Ages. Okay, and there were which kind of humans, what kind of animals, everything, and what they did. And there were wars between Cro-Magnons and other species of humans that could actually have intercourse and create a hybrid humans, and we did that. So there's a lot.
You think there was wars between different species on Earth during the Pleistocene?
Yeah, well, we know of there were when the ice caps got big. The ocean levels went down, and the people who lived on the Canary Islands went twice over to what is Spain. And they're the ones that are responsible for all the cave paintings that you've seen. And they're
what time period are we talking about right now?
Well, probably around 500,000 years.
500,000 years.
Yeah, for beginning though. So you have very primitive tools way back. But when we get to be about 150,000 years, it starts to there's an amazing advance in both the humans themselves are 6 feet 3 inches tall with male brains about 2,000 to 2,100. You and I, our biggest men now is about 1650. Women are about 1,200. So the Cro-Magnons, the true Cro-Magnons,
are brain sizes,
are huge brains and thin bones, which is thin bones, casings of the brains, and other bones, which is indicative of advanced humans. And so yeah, we know a lot about these things. But the problem is a lot of the American paleontologists like to go to the Bahamas for their vacations, and guess what? The British and the French people, they went down to the Canaries, and I went down to the Canaries once, and I saw El Museo Canario, and it blew my mind. It was a museum.
Steve, can you take over control with some photos here? Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
And so there were like 6 floors, and in the staircase were the glass cases with the skeletons. So there were about 60 full skeletons of these Cro-Magnons. And then the rooms around a floor were all the items that they made. All the needles out of bone and things like that, and clothing and things like that. And you could go, I forget which, it started from the oldest to the youngest. And the youngest ones, there were 2 invasions of these people during glacial maxima, about 40,000 BC, and then 12,000 BC is when they got over there. And that's why we still, but you know what? It's very strange because it's southeast Spain. And what's survived of the bodies and stuff, they know that they were
talking to the mic so I can hear
they
you.
were blonde-haired, blue-eyed people that still exist in that very small part of Spain. You would think they would be from Norway or something, right? But no, these people came from, they were called the Guanche is the name. The Guanche.
The oldest human genome recovered from the southern tip of Spain adds an important piece of the puzzle to the genetic history of Europe. A new study reports the genome date from a 23,000-year-old individual who lived in what was probably the warmest place in Europe at the peak of the last ice age.
Well, it was actually not so much Europe, but it looked like Europe because there was a land bridge.
Right.
To the islands down there in the Canary Islands. Right now, when you go down there, they're just islands.
The Guanches were the indigenous inhabitants of the Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean, some 100 kilometers, 60 miles west of the North African coast.
Anyway, I've been collecting, I went there and brought back with me tons of studies, but they were not done by American scientists. They were done by European scientists because the American scientists have had done little about it compared to the Europeans. Closer to home, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So this was much before. So you're obviously familiar with the Younger Dryas hypothesis, impact hypothesis, that it was cosmic impacts that melted
Sure.
the ice sheets and caused the Great Flood. That's written about
all
in
kinds of
multiple
things.
biblical texts and around the world and different cultures.
I visited them in Southeast Asia. All these tribes down there all have the same mores, not mores. They have the same stories that they tell back in their from their generations, and they're different languages and different people, and they all still tell the same thing.
Yeah. It's
around the world.
It's wild. It really is. And so I've had multiple people on here that talk a lot about that kind of stuff.
Well, I've got a book I've written, but it's one of the first things I was doing in my 20s, and so it's not even it's typed. I did type it a little bit, but it's not on something like this.
Have you seen the northwestern scablands of the United States?
No.
If you could pull up.
Did you say northeastern or western?
Western, in the northwest United States, and
all I know about that is that they talk about people came to us at the very end, just before the Ice Age.
Look at the second one, the middle one. So this is what a friend of mine, Randall Carlson's been on the podcast many times, and he takes tours of people out here to the scablands, and his hypothesis is that this is all evidence for mega floods. He thinks that there was a cosmic impact that hit the Canadian ice sheet on the southern border of Canada and melted it instantaneously, which was hundreds of millions of tons of water flowing south over the United States, which created these channeled scablands, which we see now that are all dry. And these were basically giant rivers that were flowing at hundreds of miles per hour. Like, go down, you can see that. Mm-hmm. And he has evidence to show that this is all just massive water erosion. Mm-hmm. And it was all through North America. Look at that.
Yeah, I think that
pretty incredible stuff.
And you have things that happen after that too, which is why everything's so flat on the top.
Yeah.
The further north you go, the ice sheets that came over those it was like getting a haircut.
Right. Yeah, and his hypothesis is that this all happened between 11,900 and 12,500 years ago. Mm-hmm. Something like that, during a 1,000-year period, which is called the Younger Dryas. But mainstream geologists don't take it seriously. They call it pseudoscience.
We have a problem with mainstream geologists because they're trying to say that human beings did not come here until 10,000 BC, around that time. And yet we have site after site after site. North Americas and the South America, and it's humans, and have been there 40,000, 50,000, and 60,000 years ago.
Right.
And so these people remind me of researchers in a certain area that don't want to change their minds about things because they don't want to be wrong about something.
Right.
And when we have new information.
Right.
And so there's a whole bunch of information about, that the first people who came, we talk about the Vikings, the Chinese started, the Shanghai Jing, there was a huge, the axis changed and it caused a lot of storms and things. But an emperor during the recovery period sent out 4 expeditions to redraw the earth such as it was, north, south, east, and west. Mm-hmm. Well, when you go east, there's nothing but water. So it's the Shanghai Jing, the eastern classics of mountains and rivers. Shanghai Jing, that's the English interpretation of them. Mm-hmm. And so they came and started on basically the mountain range, all from Canada all the way down to the South Pole. Mm-hmm. It's a huge uplift along that whole, and there are 3-legged pots. Guess where they come from? China, and little things that they made out of clay and stuff of Fu Manchus. Uh-huh. and their traditions tell them that some guy who was very smart brought them civilization and told them how to do a lot of things. This Fu Manchu guy.
Huh.
Anyway, there's a lot of this material in China. Some of it is still buried, and they're leaving it for who knows why they're leaving some of it buried. But I've been to the digs up there because I was in that area of the world for quite some time, and I went up there and saw a lot of this stuff. So, yeah, it's.
I had this guy, a friend of mine, Ben Van Kerkwick, who's also been here. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he did some analysis of some of the stone vases that are found in Egypt, and he took them to. He found some people who purchased stone vases. I don't know where he purchased them from, but he has them in his possession, and they were actually able to measure some of them that were in one of the Petrie Museum, Flinders Petrie, and they did measurements of every single angle of these dynastic Egyptian vases that were supposedly made with copper chisels in the Egyptian times. And they found out through aerospace engineers at Rolls-Royce who measured these things with laser machines. They found out that these things were perfectly symmetrical within like 1/1,000,000th of an inch, which is like less than the thickness of a human hair. So like today, to make something out of a granite vase, to make a vase that perfect out of granite would take a computer program. You would need to model it on a computer to create it. So how the fuck were these created?
Ancient civilizations.
During yeah, exactly. So his theory is that this must have been created before the flood, before everything was wiped out, that the human civilization was far more advanced than it is today.
Yeah, certainly in certain
and
ways.
There was a reset.
Yeah.
It was not just a linear progression.
Well,
we were set back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, and we will again if we don't stop what we're doing to it now.
Yeah.